Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Lebanon Utility Service Board for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Let the record show that the meeting was properly advertised and we had a working session prior and executive session. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
All right, we have all board members present tonight, and we like to offer public comment at the beginning and the end of each of our meetings, so we'll go ahead and offer that now. Don't see anyone here from the public for comment, so again, we'll offer that in the public hearings that we have, as well as at the end of the meeting again. So first item tonight is the approval of our minutes from the May 7th, 2025 meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those minutes, and if so, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion made by Aaron, seconded by Ann to approve the minutes from the May 7th, 2025 meeting. Any additional comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item tonight's our public hearing for the LEAP wastewater treatment plant expansion BOT, and Ryan Ottinger is here at the podium tonight, so we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Ryan, any comments before we start?
No, as you know, on the wastewater plant expansion, I believe that's this. Yep, the wastewater treatment plant expansion, pursuant to Indiana Code 5-23-5-9, we advertised this public hearing for today, and this is to approve Bowen Engineering for the wastewater treatment plant expansion. And I can answer any questions on that.
Any questions for Ryan? All right, so we have the public hearing open, and we welcome any public comment for the LEAP wastewater treatment plant expansion BOT. Don't see anyone with comments tonight. Any discussion from the board? Any other comments for Ryan? Questions?
This has been the subject of many working sessions and scoring committee reviews and so forth. So the lack of questions doesn't mean that it hasn't been thoroughly vetted.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, if there's no other discussion, then Ryan, do you have anything else? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then. Do we need a motion for that?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second. Motion made by Bill and seconded by Tim to close the first public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next public hearing here is the wastewater collections BOT, so we'll go ahead and open that up. Ryan?
Yes, very similar to, and to reiterate Mr. Smith's comments, this is part of the entire process. This is for the LEAP collections, and we did have a scoring committee with city council and planning and zoning, city engineers, board members, and we have selected Reynolds Construction for the collections part of this project.
All right, we'll go ahead and offer public comment again on this wastewater collections BOT public hearing. Don't see anyone from the public here for comments, so how about discussion, comments from the board? All right, anything else, Ryan?
And for me.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
Make a motion, we close this public hearing for the water collections BOT.
Second. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim to close the wastewater collections BOT public hearing. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
I'll be back up in a few minutes with about 10 more things. So,
All right, next item tonight is the electric conduit and equipment installation at Angeli Gardens 1B. It's an action item, and our electric operations manager, Jeff Greeno, is here tonight. Hey, Jeff.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm bringing to the board this evening to get approval for Section 1B of Angeli Gardens. The developer got 8 more pieces of property ready for us. And I would just like to ask the board to approve having Barriott perform the conduit and equipment installation for Angeli Gardens 1B for the not to exceed amount of $979.25 and have general manager sign all documents. And I do want to mention this also helps where they don't have to remobilize, come back. So we'll just have them do Section 1A and 1B just while they're here. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Questions for Jeff? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve having Barriott perform the conduit and equipment installation for Angeli Gardens Section 1B for the not to exceed amount of $9,979.25 and have General Manager Ed Baskell sign all appropriate documents.
Second.
Motion made by Tim and seconded by Bill to approve having Barriott perform the conduit and equipment installation for Angeli Gardens Section 1B with the not to exceed amount of $9,979.25 with our general manager signing the documents. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Jeff, on to the electric SUV purchase.
Yes, I'd like to ask the board for approval to replace the 2014 Jeep Cherokee. It is an administrative vehicle, and I'd like to replace it with a 2025 Chevy Equinox. This vehicle will be used, it'll help us with our transportation for trainings and schooling and for administrative purposes. I did give the board several price quotes for different vehicles and the Carfax trade-in, and I picked out this vehicle. It was really the best deal. So I have a couple things on the end of this. I would like to ask the board to approve declaring the 2014 Jeep Cherokee as surplus according to IC 52222 and use it for trade-in. The second part is I would also like to ask the board to approve the purchase of a 2025 Chevy Equinox with a not to exceed amount of $24,837.75 from Bill Estes Chevrolet GMC here in Lebanon. Do you have any
All right,
questions?
Jeff, is that 24,837? Is that the price after trade or before trade?
That is the price after trade. They gave us a trade-in value of $7,000 on the Jeep.
Okay.
You're using the trade-in value of the 7,000 as part of the purchase price, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So this was 31 around there minus the 7.
Started out at 32,645.
Okay. All right, questions for Jeff on either of these? We'll have 2 separate motions.
I don't think you need 2, but we can if you want.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and do the declaring the Jeep as surplus first. And if someone want to make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion, we declare the 2014 Jeep Cherokee as surplus in accordance with the value of the trade-in as portion of the new vehicle.
All right, motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim, declaring the 2014 Jeep Cherokee as surplus in accordance with IC 52222 and using it, the $7,000 as trade-in value. Any questions for Jeff on this trade? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we'll go ahead. Anyone have questions on the vehicle purchase?
Well, this new vehicle also be considered an administrative vehicle or a electric vehicle?
I think it's going to be more administrative vehicle. It'll be something to where We're replacing what was the GM general manager's vehicle, but we have been using it for all of our schoolings and trainings for our apprentices and meter techs. So we'll continue doing that, and if any administrative employees uptown here need it, it'll be available.
And just to clarify, we say electric SUV. This is not an electric vehicle, correct? It's a standard.
It's a regular
I'm in
gas.
electric department.
Yeah. Well, I was just clarifying for myself because when I first read it, I thought we were purchasing an electric SUV here. So, okay. Other questions on this?
Yeah, and we would share vehicles as needed. Like, to some history, the GM vehicle, I didn't need a vehicle, so when they had an escape fail out of electric, we let them use it when they needed it. It could be used by water and wastewater if they need to go to training. We're not increasing our vehicle count. We just have an old vehicle that's a maintenance problem that we're replacing with a better vehicle. So.
Anything else on the 25 Chevy Equinox? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the purchase of a 2025 Chevy Equinox with a not to exceed amount of $837.75 from Bill Estes Chevrolet.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Ann for the purchase of the 25 Chevy Equinox with a not to exceed amount of $24,837.75 from Bill Estes. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Jeff, looks like you're still up here for a little bit with the electric bucket truck purchase.
Yes, I got one more here. I'd like to ask the board to request to purchase a new Altech model AT41M bucket truck. To give you a little background on this, on my 2025 budget for the electric department, I had budgeted to buy a two-man bucket. And earlier this year, we had our truck testing done, which they come in and they do dielectric tests on the fiberglass. They do stress tests on the booms. They check all the welds, hydraulics, this, that, and the other. And one of our trucks, the smaller truck, a 2009 Altech bucket truck, it came back with kind of a really poor report. So we kind of felt it was a better idea. Truck 11, the big truck we was going to get replaced, it came back with a really good report, and we think we can get some more life out of it. So we decided truck 8 was supposed to be on the change out for next year, but we want to kind of swap things around and buy this new smaller truck to replace it since it came back with a not so good report on all the repairs. I provided the board with 3 quotes for 3 different bucket truck companies, and this one request here is also going to have a 2-part answer. I would like to ask the board to approve declaring the 2009 Altech bucket truck as surplus according to IC 52222 and have J.J. Kane Auctioneer sell it. I would also like to ask the board to approve the purchase of the 2025 Altech model AT41M bucket truck with a not to exceed amount of $213,557 from Altech and have general manager sign all documents. I do want to note, we have used J.J. Kane before on selling our trucks. This isn't a trade-in, it'd be going through the auction. We did that on our last line truck, if you recall. We had really good luck, so that's why we're doing that route.
Altech has a Indianapolis location.
That is correct. They're located about 20, 25 minutes away.
All right, any other questions? We'll have 2 motions, same as previous item. First, declaring the 2009 bucket truck as surplus. So anyone want to make that motion?
Move to approve declaring the 2009 Altech bucket truck as surplus in accordance with IC 5-22-22 and have J.J. Kane Auctioneers sell it.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Ann to approve declaring the 2009 Alltech bucket truck as surplus in accordance with IC 52222, having J.J. Kane Auctioneers handling that sale. Any additional questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the second motion here is for the purchase of the 2025 Alltech model AT41M bucket truck. It has a not to exceed amount of $213,557 from Alltech with our general manager signing. Any questions for Jeff Greeno on this purchase? Anyone want to make that motion?
Make a motion to approve purchase of a 2025 Altech model AT41M bucket truck with the not to exceed amount of $213,557 from Altech, and have general manager Ed Baskell sign all documents.
Second.
Got a motion by Bill, seconded by Aaron to approve the purchase of the 2025 Alltech model AT41M, not to exceed amount of $213,557 from Alltech. Any additional comments?
I just want to state that I have a family member who has some connection to Alltech. I don't think it is an issue. However, because of that connection, I'm going to remove myself from any discussion, and I'm not going to vote.
And we'll be abstaining from this vote. We have a motion by Bill, seconded by Aaron. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and Ann abstains. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, back to Ryan for his run here. First item is the LEAP Collection System Improvement Program, and it's supplemental number 1.
Yes, this request is to increase the amount of the LEAP Collection System Improvement Program. This supplemental agreement would includes subconsultant fees for structural design of the lift station, electrical design of the lift station, and geotechnical investigation. This agreement is associated with the wastewater SRF loan for LEAP, and still keeps us under our original $4 million budget. The increase would be in the amount of $244,770, bringing that not to exceed to $2,242,070. So the increase is $244,770. And I do have, if there's any questions on my numerous items here, I do have from Butler, Fairman, Seifert, John Leitner and his summer intern, Kobe Ottinger, are here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Ryan, that gets paid out of LEAP funds, right? It's not out of our.
Yes, that is part of the LEAP project.
I have a question for Cody. No, I don't. I'm just kidding.
He'll probably try to answer it.
Yeah. Kobe, can you ask John? Kobe, how many other supplementals we may see as we approach that $4 million limit?
It's best to not comment.
No, design-wise, I believe this should be the last one. So these are specialties items that Butler, Fairman, Seifert doesn't have in-house. We do some of our structural design. However, this lift station is pretty massive. I think right now the design's about a 50 by 50 by 50 foot concrete box. That gets a little bit beyond our comfort zone as far as structural calculations. So that's a little bit different subconsultant than what you probably have typically heard from us. But again, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, just not services we have. So we have a subconsultant to help us out with that on this very large station.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions for BF&S or Ryan? Would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the LEAP Collection System Improvements Program Supplemental Agreement Number 1 with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, increasing the amount by $244,770, making the overall not to exceed amount taking it from $1,997,300 to $2,242,070.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Tim, approving the LEAP Collections System Improvements Program Supplemental Agreement Number 1 with BF&S, which increases the amount by $244,770 to, or from $1,997,300 for a total not to exceed of $2,242,070. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan, on to the Civil Water BOT program recommendation.
Yes, and just switching gears, this request is for the civil water projects that we have upcoming. It's hard to keep them separate. Everything's separated when I was doing the agenda, so I can understand how it can get a little convoluted during this process. So this is for the civil water BOT. We have a number of projects scheduled for our 2025 capital additions in the civil side, and we did a scoring committee. Previously the board approved the scoring committee's recommendation of a number of contractors that would be able to perform these jobs. And based on that, we are recommending to the board that we tentatively select Bowen Engineering for the State Road 39 water main replacement and Indianapolis Avenue water main extension, and to tentatively select Thieneman Construction for the Chicago Street water treatment plant improvements. Those improvements are demolishing a current well house that is from the early 60s and putting a new well house there. Also, either expanding or removing and adding a new backwash storage tank. The backwash storage tank now, based on the amount of water we're pumping, it's completely at capacity before we finish a full backwash. So we need to make it to where we can get through a full backwash without having to stop. And then also a automated 24-hour a day bulk water storage system there. Not storage, I apologize. A bulk water system to where contractors can come any time of the day, any day, even holidays. It's all automated and they can get bulk water. Right now, they are subject to our hours and the days that we work to get bulk water, and 7 to 3:30 doesn't always work for contractors. So this would automate that entire process. And I'd also, would like authorization for a public hearing similar to what we just did on the LEAP items. This would allow a public hearing following the BOT protocol.
All right. Yep.
When do you think Bowen will be finished with its projects, those two projects? You have any feel for that?
After they start, yeah, I have full confidence. I see John starting to make his way up here. That it'll be by the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the goal. These are probably 2 to 3 month duration projects at most. Kind of separate. What we are trying to time up the Indianapolis Avenue water main extension is with the upcoming NDOT Grant Street project that the city is performing. So as part of that project, we're upsizing water main to 16-inch along Grant Street. We've already upsized along Indianapolis Avenue, basically up to Spencer. There's a little bit of a gap there then is what this would fill in. So trying to get the timing, trying to get the MOT correct with the city. Grant Street is already going to be a little bit of a maintenance of traffic struggle, I'm sure, during construction. We're trying not to add to that. So goal would be to get done before or concurrently with them if that works out.
I just wanted to see if there'd be minimal overlap with the Boeing wastewater treatment plant upgrades.
Yeah, and we've talked with them. Completely different superintendent and crew would be working on this from Bowen. Wouldn't impact anybody working on the wastewater treatment plant. That's a great question, and one we certainly asked before talking with staff and the scoring committee.
All right, any other questions? Looks like we have two motions.
I had a question about what is it about these selections that makes them tentative? Is it because we're going to do a public hearing, or I was just curious as to why we were tentatively selecting rather than just selecting?
Yeah,
each
Jeff,
of
correct
these?
me if I'm wrong, but it's as part of the process, part of the, once we have the public hearing, and then they can be selected. Jeff?
Yeah, really what you're doing is taking the scoring committee's recommendation, allowing further negotiations to occur with that selected contractor. And until we have gotten further into the process and had a public hearing, you don't formally select them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? I'd entertain a motion here on the first item.
I move to approve Bowen Engineering for the State Road 39 water main replacement and Indianapolis Avenue water main extension, and to tentatively select Thieneman Construction for the Chicago Street Water Treatment Plant improvements.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Bill to approve Bowen Engineering for the State Road 39 water main replacement and Indianapolis Avenue water main extension, and tentatively selecting Thieneman Construction for the Chicago Street Water Treatment Plant improvements.
Shouldn't that tentative language also be applied to Bowen?
Yes, that's a error on my part. They both should be
Okay.
tentative.
So
Yes.
Okay, Danny.
it'll be noted that both selections of Bowen and Thieneman are tentative in this motion.
Addition.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, then we have a second motion here, allowing the advertisement of a public hearing on these selections that we just mentioned as tentative. Any questions on that? I would entertain a motion.
Move to authorize the advertisement of public hearing on the tentative selections that were just approved.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Bill to approve the authorization to advertise public hearing on the tentative selections above. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan, Civil Wastewater BOT Program recommendation.
Yes, this is very similar to the previous recommendation. This is the civil side on the wastewater. Again, a scoring committee and the approval of multiple contractors that were capable of doing this job. And based on that, and our staff and the the scoring committee recommendation, we would like to tentatively select F.A. Wilhelm Construction for the 4-H grounds lift station replacement, Hickory Junction Lift Station Phase 2, and Noble Street sewer replacement. Also, I would like to additionally ask permission to advertise for a public hearing for this one also.
All right, questions for Ryan on anything here before we entertain the first motion?
I just point out again that, we're not asking him any questions or revealing a whole bunch of information in this public meeting, but there's been multiple meetings where these important projects were thoroughly discussed and the contractors were thoroughly vetted.
Yeah, these go back to budget meetings in late 2024 for these capital improvement projects, and then scoring committee comprised with different board members for the water and for the wastewater have been ongoing since early in the year started. So yeah, it's been a process.
Well, I'm going to approach these in series or parallel. Do we know?
I don't want to speak on that. John's getting his steps in.
Well, it's more than $5 million of expenditures, so.
Yeah, hopefully we can do some of them concurrently. Some still have easement acquisition pending, things like that. Some have items that are outside of our control as far as others needing to get work done ahead of time in the case of Hickory Junction Phase 2. And then some like Noble Street sewer replacement, I think we still need to, that one's still we needed to do a full design, check on permitting, make sure. So we're set up to have them be able to collaborate early, which is good. And then timing will kind of work itself out, I guess, as some of these items come into play.
Has land acquisition for the 4-H Fairgrounds lift station been completed?
It has not been completed, so that one is still pending.
All right, other questions, comments? If not, I've entertained a motion.
I move to tentatively approve F.A. Wilhelm Construction for the 4-H Fairgrounds Lift Station Replacement, Hickory Junction Lift Station Phase 2, and the Noble Street Sewer Replacement.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Ann to approve F.A. Wilhelm Construction for the 4-H Fairground Lift Station Replacement, Hickory Junction Lift Station Phase 2, and the Noble Street Sewer Replacement. Other comments? These are tentative as well, is that right? Yes. Okay. I'll start by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, and then we will entertain a motion for the authorization to advertise for the public hearing here on these tentative selections.
Motion, we move to approve the authorization for advertising of a public hearing on the tentative selections.
Second.
A motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim to approve authorization of advertisement for a public hearing on these tentative selections. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, Ryan, on to the PER for the wastewater collection system improvements, and this is supplemental agreement number 1.
Yes, this is to increase the PER for the wastewater collection system improvements. We sent this is for LEAP, correct? Yes, yeah, yep, the LEAP collection system. I just want to make sure that I'm noting that right. Going back to the LEAP project and away from civil. When we sent in the original documents, we were hoping that we could utilize previously disturbed ground and not have to complete the archaeological investigations on our own. We would be able to kind of piggyback off that. And unfortunately, after IFA review, part of their comments were that we do need to go ahead and do that. So that is this request. These subconsultant fees are eligible for reimbursement through the SRF loan. I request the approval of the supplemental agreement number 1 and increasing the amount by $15,600 from $34,600 to the total not to exceed $50,200.
All right. Questions, comments for Ryan on this item? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the PER for wastewater collection system improvement supplemental agreement number 1 with Butler, Fairman, and Cipher, increasing the amount by $15,600, making the overall not to exceed from $34,600 to a total not to exceed $50,200.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Ann, approving the PER for wastewater collection system improvements supplemental agreement number 1 with BF&S, increasing the amount by $15,600, making the overall not to exceed from $34,600 to $50,200. Additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ryan, you need a break? Are you good?
No, I think I've got a little momentum here. We can just go ahead and grind through it. If everybody can stay awake long enough, I'd appreciate it.
We got the 3-year sanitary sewer lining reroute BOT.
Yes, this is switching back to civil. Traditionally, we do a sewer lining project every year, and the way we do that is staff comes up with the proposed lining area. BF&S reviews that and makes sure that makes sense bigger picture, make sure it makes sense engineering wise. Do we need to encompass a little more, or do we need to scale that back to fit into the budget? So what we are, and then we request quotes for that. And we go through that process every year. So what we are proposing is that we do a 3-year sewer lining and gravity sewer reroute BOT program. And that would allow us to do a similar to the BOT agreements that just kind of came through. What that would allow us to do a qualification based with the scoring committee and have a 3-year program. Now that does not mean, after the first year, we are not locked into, if we pick a sewer lining company that does not perform to our expectations, we are not locked into that. We would do guaranteed maximum prices for that year. And then for 2026, come back to the board, either recommending the same company with a guaranteed max on that, or based on, for whatever reason, we want to change to somebody else that was on the approved qualifications list, we would have that ability. So it doesn't lock us in. But what it does allow is us to get a little more bang for our buck. We can use the lining company during the BOT and the work process to look at sewer lining for the following year and see where they would recommend to where we can spend, get the most per linear feet and most out of our budget in that lining process. So this would be for the BFNS to manage this 3-year program. The scope includes engineering services for 2025, 2026, and 2027 BOT program management, as well as 26 and 27 design and construction administration. We will use the wastewater 2025 budget on capital additions line item 6 for this item. This would be an amount not to exceed $45,900. And I can take any questions on this.
How many contractors do sewer lining? How many? I mean, we normally anticipate, 4 to 6 or so for construction projects. What do we see?
Yeah, we usually can get, when we do just the quotes, we usually get 3 or 4 quotes based on that. So I have, and John may have a little more experience in this, but I have confidence that we can get some 3 or 4 qualified.
I feel pretty good about 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten as many as 8 to 10
Okay.
in past years. Even there's quite a few companies that do the lining, and actually the BOT suggestion came from one of the lining companies last year. When you bid some of this work, there is some unknowns as far as what is actually
Right.
in the ground. I mean, Ryan's crew does a great job of televising and using the sewer rat and things like that to try to find out what's happening. But ultimately, you end up putting in a point repair number in there, where if the sewer lining company comes in and the pipe is just in such bad shape they can't even line it, they need to come in, cut out that pipe, put it in. We haven't really found a great way to bid that it's fair. Like the way we've done it before is on a per foot basis. That's been a little bit tough to get apples to apples quotes. And ultimately, when we do it on a per foot undistributed quantity basis, we have to come back to the board and ask for a change order to make up for that work. The other ideas could be that you could have made an allowance, but if we put $25,000 in there to fix point repairs and don't fix any, we've just spent $25,000 on nothing that we could have used to actually line more pipe. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity to get a partner on board to collaborate with on what areas should we do, and then how can we maximize the full amount of the budget? Because you also remember we could have budgeted anything. If the bids came in low numbers, we couldn't use all the budget. We could add 20% in a change order, but that, it's trying to utilize the maximum budget, knowing how important and how successful the sewer lining project has been. We did add in too, and I don't know if you touched on it, was the sewer reroute. There are a number of gravity sewers that are underneath existing structures throughout the system. So I think Ryan has
I did a little checking with Cameron on that, and he's identified 8 and he doesn't believe there's any more. Is that,
I-
can you two confirm that?
I think identified is the key. Eight known that we know right now, that we want. We've got 8 on the list that we want to address.
But we're not entirely certain that there's not more.
Not 100%, because there could be some smaller sewer lines that, that are older and not on GIS, and that the crew, the crew, if it goes, so a small line goes through a backyard and under a garage and has never had any issues and never been cameraed, there's a chance that, but I feel pretty good about that number. I don't feel good that we have any, but I feel good that would hopefully be the maximum. And if you'll remember, a few months ago, I came to the board with multiple retroactive change orders for the lining because of the point repair, and with the guaranteed maximum that we would be able to kind of work all that into the GMAX and avoid the retroactive repairs, which, I'm not a fan of. I like getting it all approved ahead of time and working within that number.
And maybe to point out on the sewer reroutes, I think Cameron's identified 8 that we can work on. There are certain ones that there's not a great solution for them.
Oh, really?
So there's one specific is under CVS, but it was designed that way when the CVS was put in maybe 20 years ago. It's encased in concrete. It's probably got, it is not ideal, and we would love to fix it, but it's also a super expensive fix, and it's a hard fix. And it was, at that time, everyone decided the best thing to do is leave it in there, build the CVS over it, but do certain. So again, there's going to be more analysis. The sewer lining is fairly easy to say, yeah, let's go from here to here. The gravity reroutes are always a lot tougher as we go. So just want to temper expectations on getting all 8 of those fixed in 3 years or anything like that. Hopefully we get 1 or 2 a year would be I think the hope.
Yes.
But to make progress.
All right, any other questions on the sewer lining or reroute? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 3-year sanitary sewer lining reroute BOT program with Butler, Fairman, and Cipher for the amount not to exceed $45,900.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim, to approve the 3-year sanitary sewer lining reroute BOT program with BF&S for an amount not to exceed $45,900. Additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, on to the wholesale water PER supplemental agreement number 1.
Yes, this is the exact same scenario that we just discussed with the LEAP wastewater collections supplemental agreement for the PER. It's based on the not being, IFA's comments on the archaeological studies have to be our own. And so the request would be the exact same for the wholesale water line. And it would be an increase in the amount of $14,725 to bring it from $44,800 to a not to exceed $59,525.
Right, comments, questions? Entertain a motion.
I move to approve the PER for CEG Wholesale Water Supply Phase 1 Supplemental Agreement Number 1 with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, increasing the amount by $14,725. So the overall not to exceed goes from $44,800 to $59,525.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Bill, approving the PER for the CEG Wholesale Water Supply Phase 1 Supplemental Agreement Number 1 with BF&S, increasing the amount by $14,725 from $44,800 to $59,525. Additional discussion?
Is there any possibility that those two archaeological, whatever the specific language is, that they would overlap? I mean, is there any possibility that you could use some of the same data rather
I think
than?
it's based on the disturbed ground. So
Gotcha.
the collections, the collection system and then where the water main's going we're disturbing that ground. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they're in two separate locations.
Okay.
So you have to do it on the exact route. So the collection system's out in Leap. We've talked a lot about the phase one wholesale water main alignment. They're just not in the same spot. The good thing that we have completed that phase one wholesale water archaeological study. The collection system one is still pending, but we didn't find anything significant on wholesale water. So no dinosaur bones or Indian burial grounds or anything like that. So we're off to a good start. Thank you, Jeff, for keeping us lucky.
Thank you for that.
John must not know the law of jinx as he speaks, so I'll talk to him about that later.
All right, any other questions, comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, page 3.
Last page.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Neil.
This is the
apologize.
Wessler Task Order 10, on-call smoke testing and inspections.
I'm just so excited. I jumped the gun a little bit. This request is for the approval of on-call smoke testing and inspections with Wessler Engineering. This is very similar to what we have. We have on-call inspections protocol with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, to where if there's a project that is not our project and we come to find out that there's not an inspector on site, or if due to staff issues where, if we've got a couple guys on vacation and we're running thin, we can call BF&S and have them come out, and at an hourly rate, they can do inspection and help us out when needed. This is the exact same scenario with Wessler Engineering. The smoke testing is very beneficial. Before we go in and do a lining project, we can do what they call smoke testing, and you can put in a smoke basically, and then it's perfectly safe, and it will show you any issues that you have where a pipe could be broken, to where you could see if a house clean out is hooked up incorrectly or anything like that. The smoke will come out, and you can help identify where you might need some point repairs, or if something is coming into the sewer that should be, if it's a sump pump and it should be hooked up and going to storm, you'll be able to see that also. So it benefits the I&I and gives us more data, and that would be on an on-call as needed basis. The same with the inspectors. If we have a sewer lining going on, or we have some sewer projects and we need Wessler's expertise in that, we'd be able to call them on an on-call basis and have them come out and help facilitate that.
I'd like to make a comment. Improper sump pump connections have been identified as a significant problem during heavy rain events. Perhaps we should consider, when we do these smoke tests, if we identify residences with an improper sump pump connection, that we take action according to city ordinance to have that resolved. So I just want to mention that as a possible way to use those smoke tests to get some action on improperly connected sump pumps.
Absolutely. I agree.
I agree. I guess I should just mention for completeness, and John could probably check me on this, but because he's the engineer, but in order for the smoke to come out the sump pump, it has to be pretty much dry. It has to be very, very dry. I mean, it's not going to reliably connect every sump pump connection. It's going to get some of them. It's going to get all your downspouts. It's going to be very useful for brakes, but it's not going to get every sump pump. It's just going to get some of them. So.
Yeah, you're correct, Ed. I mean, there are, outliers that it won't catch, but it does in a very short amount of time with very minimal manpower help you recognize some issues that you might have in an area and come up with a corrective action plan on how you can eliminate that infiltration and inflow.
So I'm sorry.
And that's 100% correct. It's what it reveals more on the smoke testing is what you can see from the road where you're doing it. So you're going to place the smoke test on a manhole, and then you're going to be looking for downspout connections, broken cleanouts, things like that. Sump pump has a check valve on it typically that's not going to allow the smoke back through there. And also it's in the private residence. So you're not going to be able to see smoke in somebody's basement, things like that. So it's really more for what you can kind of see from the right of way or from the road to help you. But it is a very useful tool to find those kind of point connections or infiltration issues.
But I will say we have had a few phone calls where there is smoke in my basement. What are you guys doing out here? And we said, well, I'm glad you asked, and let them know that that's based on improper connection and can move on further. But yeah, the sump pumps are difficult, but downspouts is a great point on it. If a downspout for your gutter is going to the sewer and should be going to the storm, that can help be identified in a smoke test. And this is like I said, is an hourly rate. So if we don't use them at all, we don't pay this amount. It'd just be on a not to exceed up to this point.
Does this, what you're asking this evening, does it have a time period? In other words, is this for 2025 or until the 68,000 is used up?
It is to one or the other. So it's for 2025, but it's also a do not exceed. So if that gets gobbled up in 3 months, then we would either come back for a supplemental agreement to that and at board approval.
Okay, but if you don't use the 68,000 in 2025, it will not carry over?
I don't think. No, I mean it's at an hourly rate, so it's coming out of the out of our engineering fees. So it would not be. It would just be left in the general funds, I would imagine.
So if we don't use all the 68,000, we'll come back next year with a similar program and an additional not to exceed.
Yeah, this is the first year we've
Is that right, Sandra?
busted.
But the question is about.
I tuned out a little myself a couple times. You're fine.
The 68,000 that's approved, is this meant to be a not to exceed for 2025 only? Or can it carry over to another year if the total 68,000 is not used this year?
Then it can carry over to next year. How do you approve it?
It looks like this is worded as not to exceed 68,000. So
With no time frame.
with
so-
no time frame, which makes sense because, we're halfway through the year almost. And if we move into 26 and still have money, it makes sense to use it. But
That's a great question, and I didn't consider it like that, but I would prefer it be, it go as long as until we get to the do not exceed. So if we're able to carry that over, that would be great. That would be ideal.
And just as a note, I don't believe that the task order sets out any time period that must be completed. A term, in other words.
all right, any other questions for Ryan? Comments? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the on-call smoke testing and inspections by Wessler Engineering for an amount not to exceed $68,000.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Bill to approve the on-call smoke testing and inspections by Wessler Engineering for an amount not to exceed $68,000. Additional comments? I would just comment that I'm sure Ryan will keep us up to date on how close we are and when we reach that 68, so.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's an hourly basis. So as we get invoiced for that, Matt Hutton has just a running total of where we are on that. So we'll know, pretty quickly if we need to, readjust that or come in for a supplemental agreement.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan, truck number 34, service bed and power inverter.
Yes, last meeting, the board approved the purchase of truck number 34 chassis. And we want to get a aftermarket service bed for this, similar to a lot of our service vehicles. And along with that, have a power inverter installed in that. And all that way, all the wiring and everything is hidden, and you don't have to worry about it getting pinched with tools. But that would allow us to plug items in that we would need on the job site and take advantage of that truck, especially as we get more and more water mains. Specifically, that would be out in areas that aren't accessible by an extension cord. This would be ideal. We did receive 2 quotes on this, and we are asking to approve the Clark truck equipment there out of Crawfordsville for the service bed and inverter for a total of $17,781. And that does leave us under our overall budget for the total truck purchase. Instead of just buying the entire truck, we separated it, but it does leave us still under that capital addition budget.
All right, questions for Ryan on this service bed and power inverter?
Move to approve the purchase of a service bed and power inverter for vehicle number 34 through Clark Truck Equipment for the amount not to exceed $17,781.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Ann to approve the purchase of the service bed and power inverter for vehicle number 34 through Clark Truck and Equipment for the amount not to exceed $17,781. Additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan, looks like you may still be standing by because Spencer doesn't look like he's here tonight. So.
No, he's on vacation, which is wild that he has vacation time, but it's also weird that he picked a board meeting night to take advantage of that, but I don't think that's a coincidence.
All right, this is the 2024 water capacity assessment, and it looks like Jeff will, you going to help with this, Jeff?
I will.
Okay.
You want me to go ahead and tee this up for you?
Yep.
All right, absolutely. This request is for the approval of the 2024 water capacity assessment. Lebanon Utilities has been evaluating our water. As we know, our water allocation, we allocated the majority of our water and put a moratorium on any more allocation. But what we were able to do is, as we go through and projects are completed, what was allocated for them and then what their actual usage is can be 2 different items. If you allocate 100 EDUs and as they've been online, they're only using 50 EDUs, then that's realized gallons that we have the ability to reallocate back into the system. And so what we've done is we have done an assessment based on this. And Jeff, do you want to touch on the assessment, or would you like for me to?
Happy to. This has been the topic of a number of meetings, as the board is aware. Butler Fairman is here, can also speak to the logistics, but what is it in short? What the memo indicates is that there's additional capacity that can be realized in the system with using some engineering practices and and measuring tools and how we assess how much capacity is available in the system. So my suggestion is that the board consider approving the water capacity assessment and as detailed in the Butler, Fairman, and Seifert memo.
All right, questions for Jeff or Ryan here on this water reassessment?
I just want to clarify that and you may have touched on this, Ryan. If you did, I apologize, that the reassessment is temporary until we have new water supply. Is that, or new capacity?
I would say that the reassessment, the need for the reassessment is a temporary and will be an ongoing process that the water utility does, and it evaluates either on a quarterly or semi-annual basis how much water is needed. Lack of water will be temporary until we receive more. So this is opening up some available capacity. And then once that's used, we will continue to reevaluate, but it may be that we don't have any further to allocate until new water is realized in January of 2027. If that answers your
Okay,
question.
I think so. I mean, I support appropriately allowing for folks who expected to be able to connect, but I also want to make sure that we are being as conservative as we need to be, so.
I think a good, maybe part of your question was for the planning purposes, time being for 2025, 2026 would be to use a slightly less conservative number of 300 gallons per day per EDU for planning purposes only, not changing anything in any of the ordinances. And then going back in 2027, once we have our additional 2 MGD of water, going back to our more conservative 500 gallons per day per EDU that has actually led us to be in this position that we're in to even make a reassessment. So I think Lebanon Utilities staff has made good judgment so far on being properly conservative to where we can even look at this request on a temporary basis for planning purposes.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I read in the memo. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
All right, good questions. Any other questions here for Jeff, Ryan, BFNS? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2024 water capacity assessment pursuant to Butler, Fairman, and Seifert's April 23rd, 2024 Lebanon Utilities Water Capacity Assessment Memo.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Bill to approve the 2024 water capacity assessment pursuant to the BFNS April 23rd, 2024 Lebanon Utilities Water Capacity Assessment Memo. Any additional comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we move on now to some of these projects, qualified projects for the water reassessment approval. These are projects like Ann had mentioned that had been waiting, and the reassessment allows some of this now. So, Ryan?
Yes, this does roll right into my next request. I don't know if what I need to do on this besides just hope and pray that it turns on. There it is. The table you have in front of you is part of a long process along with the reassessment memo for BFNS throughout the month of March of this year. Representatives from the City of Lebanon and Lebanon Utilities met with various developers from projects which had advanced through the city planning department's permitting process, but could not advance further due to lack of available allocated water capacity. During these individual developer meetings, the developers provided realistic water requests in terms of EDUs for their projects for the year 2025 and 2026. The information obtained during the redevelopment meetings has been summarized in this table. And my request would be to approve this table based on these numbers. This process was very rigorous. And I have to say that along with Mayor Gentry, city planning and zoning, city engineering, Butler, Fairman, Cipher, and utility staff was very involved in this. And I have to give kudos to the development community. When we asked for realistic numbers, they were very realistic. They didn't ask for my whole project. They came in and did a great job of helping us help them. And allowing for us to be able to be comfortable with these numbers while still being conservative with our 300 gallons per day on our planning. And the chart that I have here with the developers listed are the developers that will be impacted in a positive way by this, who were impacted in a negative way with the moratorium that was issued in the past. So my request would be for the approval of the table that has been submitted to the board.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Good explanation there. Questions for Ryan on this table or the reassessment in general? Right, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the water reassessment capacities for the qualified projects as presented, subject to the execution of the water supply and wastewater capacity reassessment agreement by each project or owner.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Bill to approve the water reassessment capacities for the qualified projects as presented in this chart, subject to execution of the water supply and wastewater capacity reassessment agreement by each project or owner. Any additional comments? Ever signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we jump to the water supply and wastewater reassessment agreements.
So the next step in this entire process would be after we met with developers, we sent them an MOU for them to put in their data based on their request, based on this table of what their needs would be for 2025 and 2026. And on that, on those MOUs, my request would be that we approve the MOUs for Auburn Meadows Section 4, Corbett Towns, Liberty Village, 511 East Walnut Street, and 217 South Meridian.
All right, questions for Ryan on these specific projects?
Or Jeff.
If I read the MOUs correctly, each of these developers or homeowner is required to pay the water and wastewater availability fees within 20 days to get their building permit, correct?
That is correct. Just as a note, any other projects that were approved as qualified projects for the released capacity that are not in our list for today, we've simply not received the agreement back from them as of yet.
They have all been sent, and we were just, as anybody that got the information, the MOU returned by the board deadline, we put on here. So there will be, I anticipate, future MOUs with other developers. But what we didn't want to do is try to wait for everybody to submit it at once and then hold anybody up any longer than necessary. So as we get them in by board deadline, then we will continue to submit those.
Yeah, that's a good point for people wondering why only some here are on the list as compared to the chart. So, all right, any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the water supply and wastewater capacity reassessment agreements for the following projects or owners: Auburn Meadows, Section 4, Corbett Towns, Liberty Village, 511 East Walnut, and 217 South Meridian.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Bill to approve the water supply and wastewater capacity reassessment agreements for the following projects or owners: Auburn Meadows Section 4, Corbett Towns, Liberty Village, 511 East Walnut, 217 South Meridian. Any additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan, looks like you come to the end. Thank you for everything.
Thanks for everyone for your patience.
Okay, next item is the approval of the claims, payroll, and transfers dated May 21st, 2025. Everyone reviewed those items, and if so, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve claims payroll transfers dated May 21st, 2025 in the amount of $3,325,479.15 for claims and payroll and $616,122.14 for transfers.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Ann to approve the claims, payroll, and transfers dated May 21st, 2025. Additional comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any other business from the board tonight? Ed, you got anything for us?
Just want to thank the board for their diligence. It's been a lot of extra meetings, a lot of time outside of meetings, and a lot of items and long meetings for the board. And we just want to thank you, and the ratepayers, thank you.
Okay, we'll offer public comment again. Don't see any public comments, so we are scheduled to meet next Monday, June 4th, 5 p.m. And if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.